tonight's meeting. You weren't there, so, you know, I know you can't answer anything, but I couldn't even.
Earl G had on his Facebook page, which I saw, with the chef from the old Muppets. And sometimes they can be that way.
Well, listen, well, I'm gonna ask you a few questions because there were some things that really raised questions in my mind. First of all, they have an interim TA, all right? Now, from my understanding and other people's understandings and the way I interpreted it, after this permanent TA left, they put this individual in as an interim,
Right.
just to keep us, as you term it, afloat. Well then, this individual, on an interim basis, went ahead and made raises for people. Okay? This is what they were voting on. Alright? I don't, I guess my question is, if a person is there on an interim basis until they can find a qualified individual, how do they have the right to put raises such as the ones that were in question in place, or even recommend, or put them up? Or, I can't wrap my head around this.
My opinion, strictly my opinion, I think those were put in place prior to the former administrator leaving. And she just basically had what he had down there and followed through with it.
Yeah, but some of these were ridiculous. I mean,
Well,
almost 30%.
That's what some of them were prior to his departure. Do they make sense to you as a taxpayer or me as a taxpayer? Probably not. I can't get
No
20,
way.
30%, but the idea of it is, these were all done under the former administrator. She looked at them, she crunched the figures, I'm sure she did. Now, I'm not gonna make excuses for anyone, I'm not even gonna throw anyone under the bus, except for the former administrator. As far as some of the pay raises, basically not even answering the unions on some of the things. It took years for some things are still in arbitration. And I'm going, while some of the higher echelon was getting double-digit raises. And I'm going, wait a minute, I used to complain about that all the time, and look where it got me, but the idea of sitting in my kitchen talking to you, I mean, how bad can things get?
That's not a bad thing, though.
But the thing is, people forget that, you know, all of us on the board of taxpayers, water sewer users, but I used to question on that. Now, or you'd have another position. We don't have money for this. Well, let's give this person $96,000 a year plus a car, plus a phone, plus gas, and back and forth, and you don't even pay taxes in town. Well, we need one of these. Really? Maybe we do, maybe we don't, but you go, holy jeez, you know, everybody gets a new car. I said, why don't you just get dealer municipal plates? I says, because that kind of always ticked me off. And there's certain few that should have vehicles, and there's some I kind of question. I mean, we're not talking buying these people Bentleys. I'm not talking about that.
Right.
It's just the idea. Granted, a municipality pays less for gas than, say, you or I would, you know, because we got our own gas tanks. But that's not. It's just the point of it.
Right.
And I think that, well, we had to get the, or next thing you know, oh, I just hired so-and-so. And you go, whoa, and what's the salary on that? Well, I got this. Yeah, but you promised her that.
Right.
How come we're short $18,000 here? How are we gonna make this up?
And that's the thing, too.
That was the difference between what we put on paper and what was gonna be promised, quote unquote.
Well, this is the thing, because me, I mean, personally, you know, I hold a business degree in business administration. You know, it's a town, which is a business. how, if we're being told as residents, take the water, the whole water issue, for example. If we're being told as residents, well, we really don't have the money in this department to be doing this, but yet you can find the money in other areas to give somebody close to a 30% raise? I mean, from a business standpoint, that doesn't compute in my mind. You can't, how can I put it? You cannot deprive one department and then give somebody a raise in another department and expect people to be happy with it or question it. Because to me, that doesn't make sense. If you're strapped for money, why are you giving a person 28 to 30, or, you know, I'm saying close to 30, I don't know the exact number, I've seen 27, then 28, and, you know, so I'm gonna round up. But still, that's close to 30%. I don't think one person in the world gets a close to a 30% raise.
Like I said, I don't, but the theory behind it, I think, was done on promises. Some promises were broken. Some promises were made and put in writing.
So then why?
But, if I may, I believe the chairman of the finance committee, from what I understand, wanted to, any of that discussion as far as any raises, bring it up in October when they get so forth and so on. Some people may agree or disagree with him. I happen to have a good rapport with the chairman. But the idea of it is, it made a good point. And then again, if we had the money and we knew what we're gonna get from the state, and we know this for certain, and this has been done because we're starting the new fiscal year as of today, July 1st, let's see what kind of situation we're in then. Would it justify a percentage raise? I'm not saying 10, 20, 30, I'm not saying that, but some sort of raise. Or you're just trying to keep people in a position. I don't know. I can't answer that. I'm not there, so I don't know. But the idea of it is, that was a good suggestion. And then you could maybe give somebody, maybe if there's enough money to do that, and then the following May town meeting, you could, in other words, take it in steps.
Right. Stagger it almost.
Yeah.
You know?
Again, whether the person is,
And we're gonna touch on that too, because I was gonna go into that, but you mentioned something that is gonna do it. So I guess what I wanna know, just as briefly as possible right now, how much control or say does the finance committee have over the BOS?
they have no control over the Board of Selectmen or anyone for that matter
Well-
in the town. They're a,
Overseer?
they're like the watchdogs, if you will, on the budget.
Wow.
Yeah, here we go, wow, it turned upside down, says mom, but the idea of it is, they're the people that double check the figures. Some of them are very, very qualified.
But as far as protocol, do they,
They're an advisory group.
alright, so do they like go in there, when they go in there and they're trying to explain this to the residents of what's going on, and they're making motions or recommendations to, who are they making these to? Are they making them to not only the residents and or the BOS and the other admins that are there, or are they making these suggestions to a specific area?
The Board of Selectmen, when we get a budget, or articles for that matter, for a town meeting, we go over them. If there's money issues, the Finance Committee goes over them. That's why you'll see on there, a Board of Selectmen recommend, Finance Committee recommend. Or one says yes, one says no, no recommendation by either board. We used to, years ago, have joint meetings with the Finance Committee. We used to do that, and we did earlier this year, with the Finance Committee, the Board of Selectmen, and say the School Committee, as an example. That was a good tradition to try to see
Wow,
what
look at
was
it up
going
there.
on.
It's pretty incredible out on the lake right now. It's
Oh,
pretty
you'll
wild.
take this one, but
Oh,
anyway.
yeah, right.
But we'd always have a discussion. And again, all of the finance committee meetings are open to the public. So
Are the public able to speak at that meeting?
yes,
You got-
absolutely.
All right, hey, listen, again, I'm done, I don't know, because I've never been to
And they
somebody.
don't cost you a penny.
And obviously, I can't rely on somebody from the town hall to specifically tell me what these processes are, because as you know, I asked about, going to a BOS meeting, and they gave me the impression that I needed to have an issue to be on the agenda, because these meetings were basically closed, and if you
They
wind up...
are on a certain day at a certain time for the next agenda,
Okay.
if you wanted to be on the agenda. Otherwise, if you just wanted to come in and listen to the BOS meeting
At any time?
at any
Or
time.
and the
you are
finance
welcome.
committee?
Absolutely, they're all open meetings,
Okay.
every
All right.
single one of them.
Well, I'm glad you clarified that for me.
And they're free.
No charge to the resident or taxpayer whatsoever.
Nope, and,
Well, I've given, as you can
I see
see,
the ethics, yeah.
I've given Mr. Miller here a copy. I printed this out. It's 6 pages long. It comes straight from the State Ethics Commission, because I brought up some very good points with this, and from my understanding, right now, FinCom ain't too happy with the Board of Selectmen because of some of the research I've done. That's my opinion. It was weird because during this meeting, and again, I've never been to one, I'm just starting to learn, I don't know the process, I'll ask anybody if they're sitting next to me, hey, what's the, matter of fact, the first one I went to the week before, they gave me a white card, and I'm like, I didn't know what to do with it, and yes, I did it. So there was a guy sitting there, I said, hey, I felt kind of foolish, but hey, what do I use this thing for? Well, that's for you if you want to vote. I says, okay, thanks. But anyways, I just, there were parts of that meeting that I could not understand for the life of me. And as I said, this is a printout. It's 6 pages long. This is from the State Ethics Commission, and it's basically the summary of the conflict of interest law for municipal employees. I basically researched this because as the voting was taking place, I was kind of astonished to see how one of the raises were voted down. And I want to say, and I could be wrong on my time frame here, 2 minutes later another motion was made. All right?
That long?
Uh-huh.
That long?
Again, I could be off. I could be off on that. But another motion was made to revisit what we just voted on. Well, I guess, and I'm hoping I get this right, I guess on that second motion, there were at least one, if not more, BOS members that raised their hand for this vote. And I'm like, wait a minute, how can we go back? It ultimately lost. It ultimately went through. And that's the other thing, because the moderator went from the first one to the second one and kind of changed the voting. I guess it went, on the first one, for example, he was like, if you want it, you vote yay. If you don't want it, you vote no. But then when we went to the amended part, well, if you don't want it, you vote yay, and if you want it, you vote no. So it kind of got switched up between the two votes. So I'm sitting there and I'm thinking to myself, wait a minute, we just voted on this and it got shot down. We voted and we won to not approve this. But then 2 minutes later, because somebody made a motion, and a BOS member voted on that. Now that's an amendment, correct? That's an amendment
You'd have to
vote.
vote on the amendment first, then the original motion.
So,
You can make 20 amendments,
and the
but you
reason
have to go back and back and back and back.
the reason I looked this up for all the viewers out there is because this was the only thing I could find that gave me some information on the actual jobs, on what they can and can't do. So, as I was reading this, it definitely, to me, I interpreted it just as I'm about to explain to you. Because this goes into the whole thing about, let me just say, the week before I was at the meeting, it seemed many of the town employees were not even there. Well, this vote on Monday, it was jam-packed with town employees, all right? Because I didn't see one of them there the week before. So that kind of raised my eyebrows too. Well, as I was going through this, I happened to see a couple guidelines, and Mr. Miller basically went over this before we started the show. And there's one particular section in here, D, where it says self-dealing and nepotism. Participating as a municipal employee in a matter in which you or your immediate family, your business organization, meaning the town, your future employer has a financial interest is prohibited. Along with that one, I believe C, which is misuse of position, could apply. And I also, I'm not sure, I think I lost it because I was looking at it online and it's got a different here. All right, under D, it's the second paragraph, and I state, a financial interest may create a conflict of interest whether it is a large or small and positive or negative. In other words, it does not matter if a lot of money is involved or only a little. It also does not matter if you are putting money into your pocket or taking it out. If you, your immediate family, your business, or your employer have, and I'm talking about as far as an employer, I'm looking at the employees as they look at the town as their employer, okay? Have a financial interest in a matter. You may not participate. The financial interest must be direct and immediate or reasonably foreseeable to create a conflict. Financial interests which are remote, speculative, or not sufficiently identifiable do not create conflicts. It also says at the beginning, a municipal employee may not participate in any particular matter in which he or a member of his immediate family, parents, children, siblings, spouse, and spouse's parents, children, and siblings have a financial interest. He also may not participate in a particular matter in which a prospective employer, the town, or a business organization, the town, of which he is a director, officer, trustee, or employee, has a financial interest. Participation includes discussing as well as voting on a matter and delegating a matter to someone. So, with that being said, how is it not a conflict of interest when you give the employees a double voting sword? It's double dipping. They are there as a resident, they are there as an employee. Not only that, from my understanding, that second vote was an amended vote. A BOS member voted on that. How does that go by? How does nobody pull that out? How does it just go by the wayside and then get revoted upon seconds later, if that's the time frame? That is very, very questionable. And then, not only do you allow them to vote as residents, but you're also allowing them to vote as an employee of the organization. Is that not a conflict of interest? Are there any positions in this world, other than third world countries with labor issues, you know, paying somebody $5 a day to work 16 hours, is there any other employee, huh?
I get that.
Yeah. Is there any other employee?
Before taxes.
Is there any other employee of any kind that you can think of that makes their own raises and then passes them?
That, well, number one, all of the town meetings go to the AG's office to be reviewed. And regardless if it's all unanimous or it isn't or whatever, it's reviewed, and 2-3 months later you get a final, if it passed or not. Now, I don't have, I'm gonna,
I mean, what would you think, I mean, I know you weren't there, you're only going by my word, all right?
if you look at this, if somebody had a legitimate complaint on a certain individuals in regards to this, I would contact the State Ethics Commission, because if it was personal gain for this, that, or the other. But I don't know. Now, we've had board members, for example, and this is a little bit different.
I mean, I guess,
If you're voting for your own raise, but you say, but it's my right to vote at a town meeting. There's a double-edged sword here. What, you know,
well, we can't do that, because of course they're gonna come and vote on these
it's called
budgets.
stacking a meeting.
And that's what I said.
Ta-da! That's what it is, that's what it's
How
always
can
been.
they do that legally? I mean, if they went out and got other voters that are residents, that would have been fine. Don't call in the town employees that are residents, because that makes you look like something is going on.
That's been done over and over and over.
I can't understand how they get away with it and then still have this allowed. As far as I'm concerned, I think the BOS members' votes and the town employees' votes should have been thrown out. Because I believe it was a major conflict of interest, even from a business perspective.
Well, BOS basically got a stipend. They are technically employees, but, you know, really for $215 a month forever, you know, that's what you get. But, again, does somebody have a special interest in it? No, shame on me. But, I see your point. For me to answer this, I'd have to be a labor attorney expert, and I'm not. We have this, but then somebody would say, but you have to interpret it with the bylaws of the town of Webster. Does one supersede the other? I would say no. But the idea of it is, if you go by this, and then you'd have to have names, you'd have 12. I believe they videotape the,
Yeah.
okay. So the idea of it is, at some point in time, if somebody was that ticked off at an individuals, then you'd have to see, then it would be like,
I mean,
you
I'm
can
not-
vote, but I
I'm-
can't vote for my raise.
I'm fine with those getting passed. I'm not bitter, I'm not angry. But I mean, come on. That is trickery.
This is the Commonwealth of Massachusetts.
That's trickery. How do you get away with that? And then still be able to look the voter and or resident and or taxpayer in the face and expect them to believe you?
No, it is an excellent point. I've seen it in the past. I'll probably see it in the future.
Well, do you think things like this, what took place?
Somebody has to get a hold of and have a narrative and or a copy of that tape of that meeting. And basically, you'd have to go by a voter checklist because everybody has to check in.
So
I'm
then what,
assuming.
so, okay, so if
But
that's
you
the
don't know
case,
how they voted until you see the crowd with the up yes or no.
so if this takes 2 to 3 months for it to go through the state,
Mhm.
what if the state, somebody alerts the state to what I pointed out? And then they say, oh yeah, we see it on tape, I know exactly what he's talking about. So what happens as of today, when the town pays all their bills, and then the state, 2 to 3 months, says, oh no, this budget cannot pass?
Looks like we'll have another town meeting.
So what happens to all the money that's been paid out? Do
We-
they bounce a check?
If you already passed the budget, okay, you would go on business as usual until there's another solution, of which I don't have the answer for. I've never been in this type of quagmire. I've been in a lot of crap in my life, but I've never really,
And I, again, I'm not,
yes you are.
no, I'm trying to learn the processes here. This is
You're
what-
gonna find between the state and the municipalities and then the feds, nothing matches the way you'd want it to match, even if it makes common sense. Common sense has no ruling when it comes to state or the feds, as an example. Municipalities, sometimes they do, sometimes they don't. We all hope it does. But I've found that out over the years, that you might have the best idea in the world and say, you know what, I'm gonna make white paper. We can put things on it. And somebody say, you can't, because there's a law that says you can't, somewhere. And I'm gonna manufacture it, well, you can't, because then you're gonna sell it to the town.
Yeah, but it's not even, it doesn't even seem like this stuff is, you're right, it almost seems like it's manufactured and just brought up, and, I mean, to me, I got the feeling this was rushed. The interim TA was just blowing through the budget, and I felt like yelling out, hey, can you slow it down? Because they wanted to hurry up and pass the budget. And people are saying, and the thing was too, listen, this isn't about not giving deserving people raises, all right? This is about rushing this thing, not giving the correct information, not communicating, and trying to throw this past the residents and the taxpayers. And then when the override gets defeated, you have a meeting on the budget, it goes down, and then the following week, you bring in all the employees. I don't think that's, honestly, I don't think it's legal.
And then the next day, your taxes go up 10%.
I don't think it's legal. How can the town employees be able to vote on this stuff?
For their own.
For their own. You're giving them that power. You're saying, you know what? You can make your raises and you can pass them, and we're gonna let you.
Again, I'm not gonna even attempt to answer that and give you, anybody out there, misinformation. I see your point. The best thing you could do is www.mass.gov/ethics and go from there, and/or you call them and say, this is the dilemma.
Well, I gotta be honest with you.
I'm not giving you the right answer.
No. But I gotta be honest with you. If those votes didn't count, there's no way that budget would have passed.
Probably not.
Not at all. Because there were more residents against it at the time than there were. That whole section, oh yeah, that whole section, that's what clinched it for them. That's what clinched it. I don't know, especially when it comes to your own personal pay, I don't know how they can do that. There's not another job in the world that can do that.
Again, I wasn't there, but, and you got some of them deserve, like I say, most of them, if not all of them, deserve it. But it's how do you get to that point?
Well, you gotta make a stand. You gotta make a stand. I wanted to see the town shut down, and I'm sorry, I did. All right, because these people need to realize that the residents.
But if you should say you laid everybody off.
No, I'm not saying lay everybody off.
No, you can't fire them. You just can't shut it down because the town is self-pay. So you could say, okay, we're going to shut everything down. They'll still get paid every week because that's how the town's set up.
That's
so
very interesting.
So you go, okay, well, okay, fine. You take as much time as you want, I'll still get my check mailed to me.
See that? And that
you can't say, well, I'm gonna go to unemployment because.
But when it comes to their own personal pay.
I know, I'm not deaf. You know, I'm gonna take a couple of those tats off if you keep treating me like this. But the idea of it is, I'll put a couple staples in your ears.
Oh,
but the idea is, I don't have the right answer.
No, I know.
And I'm being perfectly honest with you.
And I, you know what, I appreciate the time you've taken to
Don't
help
holler
me.
at me.
I appreciate the time you've taken to help me try to understand this and try to help some of the WOW members understand some of this.
This is very interesting though. I don't know the right answer, but just by looking at this, and you know, I don't know if you get online to some of the folks or whatever, or have them go where to look for it.
Well, I've already sent the link to a couple different people.
So maybe they can look into it. And again, everything is based on, I always love this word, I hate this word, opinion.
Right.
You know, Oh, our opinion, so if you have, so we have 3 attorneys here, and they're all experts on this. Well, our opinion is, and the other one says, no, my opinion's this. Well, no, my opinion's that. What is the ruling? What is it?
Right.
I don't want your opinion. I want, what does it mean? What is it, black and white? You say, well, this is black and white. Yeah, what does it mean? Well,
It
see,
almost
that
sound-
word shouldn't say that. It means this. You say, wait a minute.
And who's buying?
They're mine?
Do they look up these words in the dictionary and give a definition for them on what they mean? So it's a little more defined?
Well, if you look up gadfly,
Oh, that's too funny. But listen, in your own opinion, and listen, I'm not trying to get anybody in trouble. This is not my objective here. I want this town to start, and I'm not saying they're not doing good things, but some of this stuff is just friggin' out there. It's like,
let's put it this way, in the regular working world. So if you worked in a shop or you,
yeah,
wherever.
but these are guidelines on municipal employees.
Municipal, and it's very specific on that. But in the real world of employment, you know, do whatever you want, but this is for municipal employees. And even when we had meetings where Board of Selectmen, and I'm not even talking this, we had a couple of members years ago, one for
Excuse me.
Ford Motor Company, one was for the ABCC. So if we came up with any type of vehicle, he would, for a couple seconds, recuse himself because it could cause, and leave the room.
Well, that's,
ABCC, and that says that.
that says that in here.
ABCC, the gentleman would make his brief statement, get up and go out of the room. Then we had a town employee, they'd just sit 4 rows back. Well, I can't be bothered. But just sitting right there, you listen to the whole thing. And I'm going, why aren't you, you know, it didn't make any sense to me. And, or on a budget. So what are you gonna do, not give them the budget? Of course you get the budget, keep them in the packet. You know, or any negotiating with union, non-union, this, that, and the other thing with the town, you're on both sides of the fence.
Well, that was the other thing too. I apologize for not bringing more paperwork. I kind of wanted to bring it too, and I know this show has been extended even longer, and that's fine. But you know, there's got to be a happy medium here. There's got to be a point where people look at this stuff and say, what the hell's going on here? I mean, you know, it's, and then you've got an interim, you know, TA that, I don't know what they were trying to do at this meeting. They were blowing through everything. The paperwork I had for the articles, when he read Article 2, the moderator, wasn't even the same thing on the paper that I was reading. I'm like, what the hell article is he reading? You know? So, with everything that's going on, I mean, do you really think this town or the BOS or whomever can afford to make any more mistakes, no matter how minimal they are?
There'll always be mistakes.
Well, and
I don't care who's in office.
Listen, I understand there will always be mistakes, but I mean, come on, some of this stuff is a no-brainer.
When you get into like this sort of thing, you could have a situation, or somebody getting up like that. The only time I think I ever got up was, I think it was last fall on a couple articles with the administrator. And town council was there, and we all voted prior to that on something. So we never got that. Where'd this come in? Well, you had it for 3 weeks. None of us had. And we said, no, all 5 of us, 5-0, unanimous vote. Pass over the article. Got up and he had the mouth up. And I got up and I said something which was highly unusual. And the vote was, didn't pass only because it was tied. And the only reason it was tied because this one person was talking to town council, they didn't vote. Otherwise I could have defeated it on the floor. And it was something so stupid, it just drove me crazy. Again, empty promises. And I said, I land-based him on that. I said, actually, I says, quite frankly, I said, I could have fired you right then and there. And probably had the whole board. But be it as it may, it's history. But again, you come back down to communication or lack thereof, or procedure as to what you can
Well,
and can't.
and that's the thing, I mean, it's almost like.
Most people that go
this
don't
stuff-
know all of this.
It's almost like some of this stuff is not even considered or followed, they make their own rules as they go along. I mean, come on, you guys there are specific guidelines in there somewhere, policies, procedures, protocol. You need to follow this stuff to the T.
Mm.
And if anything is questionable at all, then it should be looked at by someone. I mean, there's gotta be somebody other than watchdogs to oversee what the hell is going on here. I mean, what's your take on that?
You're getting too complicated for me, and you're getting me worked up. You're making me the old Bob Miller, you know, I'll give you one of these.
Oh,
I'm too
jeez.
old now, so it doesn't much matter, but you know, I don't have, like I said, I'm being perfectly honest with you, I don't have all these answers. This is a predicament that supersedes anything that I've seen. I mean, I've seen the stack meetings. For example, you needed a piece of equipment. Whether you need it or not, somebody will, and it'll go come up, defeated. Go to the next meeting, brought up again, defeated. And this goes on for 2-3 years until you finally got what you wanted. Of course, now it costs you more money. But stack the meeting, stack the meeting, stack the meeting, stack the meeting.
I don't see how that's ethical. I don't see how that's ethical. Listen, I try to follow the letter of the law each and every day. I'm no saint by any means, and I don't claim to be. But I mean, come on, if you're not even going to take responsibility. Listen, if any of them, whomever they may be, and I'm not singling out one individual, and any of them, at least, if a mistake was made, came forward and say, oops, I screwed up.
I did that more than once.
I would respect that more than to have somebody not say a word about it at all.
Let it slide.
You know what I mean? And I can't, yes, it upsets me, because you know what? I'm not gonna lie to you. I'm gonna have respect for you the minute I walk in your door, no matter if I like you or not. But I'll tell you, the minute you start playing with my money and then lie to me about it, that's when things change, you know? I won't put up with this stuff for the next 20 to 40 years living in this house out there.
No, let's face it, everybody got their tax bills this week, and a lot of them say, well, gee, I'm on a fixed income, and it went up another 10%.
Well,
Roughly.
it's a good thing I'm at the house taking care of my dad, because I'll tell you, if he was still alone and he got
You couldn't do it.
he couldn't do it.
There's a lot of folks in town that cannot, and they might have had the house, it's bought and paid for generations, but the folks that are in there now that are just getting their social security check, which is, if they worked 40, 50, 60 years in a local mill or something like that that's no longer around, or a shop, they're not making a hell of a lot of dough.
No.
And they get that tax bill on that house that has been paid for 50, 60 years, just the round and round, because you got a tax, you got the water, the sewer, and you're going. And now that's been the biggest complaint I've heard. I'm not exempt, but he thinks I got like $1 bazillion sitting somewhere. I'd like to find it. Can't, don't, won't, but and if it, well, we're at the lowest, this, that, and the other thing, I don't want to hear that either. Because wait, buckos, use your seat belts for your next couple of bills. You think it's bad now, it's only going to go up more and more and more.
And this is what we need to do. We, and I'm not just me and Mr. Miller, I mean, we as residents need to put a stop to this. Because I'll tell you, the way it's going, man, it is just, it's not gonna be good. There's a lot of things going on, and I'm not trying to be negative. I'm looking at this realistically from not just a personal standpoint, but a business aspect. The things that keep going on, and I just don't know how this town is running then, especially if they're hurting so much as it is, but yet they can give raises to the employees. I mean, it doesn't compute, it doesn't level out, it doesn't equal out.
Champagne wishes, caviar dreams.
Well,
And all you can afford is, well, 'cause I don't know if you drink it, but get a bottle of water and have a saltine cracker.
well, listen, I think we covered quite a bit today. I don't think there was anything else.
Should have had easier questions, Mom.
I'm trying to think if there was anything else from that meeting that, I usually take a pad with me, but I didn't today.
I think what you ought to do is take some calm down pills, because your blood pressure was flying.
Well, listen.
No, but, and it's understandable.
I'm passionate. I'm passionate as a resident. I'm a passionate individual, you know. Castrate me, you know, condemn me for it, you know. I'm passionate about the town I was born and raised in. I love this town. I love the lake. I always have. I always will. Even if I live here or I don't. But what I've seen over the 50 years I've lived here, I mean, I don't know how else to interpret any of it. I mean, to me, there are people in this town that are running it, that people have put in positions that are just abusing their power.
I think you'd have, again, because I've been here all my life, you will see that anywhere you go.
And I don't know.
And you know that, and I know that. But quite frankly, you'd like to see a stop to it.
Right.
I've seen it, or if I haven't seen it, I've heard it, and then I observe it.
Right.
And it doesn't make me too happy. Like I say, even on the deal, we didn't get the permit, but the conservation came, oh, you just replaced it, that's okay. So, but, oh, there's your $50.
Right.
You know, that's legal. Got the little dog, and my little dog too.
Right.
You know, $6. Fine, you pay it.
Yeah,
You know?
and listen, if it's a good cause, and I apologize, I don't mean to get over rambunctious, let's say, because, you know, it really doesn't come down. If I was being talked to with respect and at least given a tangible statement or explanation, then I'd probably vote for this stuff. But for you to sit there and look me in the face, and I can see right through you, and tell me something like the story I got about the water, and get a story like I did with the water, how in the world do you expect me to go down there and vote and swallow this stuff and be okay with it? I'm not going to get force-fed a bunch of crap by anyone. I don't care who it is, you know? But, yeah, I'm trying to learn this. And you're right, it's frustrating. It's frustrating as hell.
It can be very frustrating.
And it's not even about, it wasn't even about whether what I didn't want to happen happened. It was about the process and how it was done. If we lost legitimately and ethically, then I probably wouldn't have said anything. All right, they deserve it, I understand that. But don't sit there and tell me you have no money in this department, then all of a sudden, oh, we have enough money in this department to give this person a $20,000 raise. I mean, whether you can move line items from department to department, I don't know. You probably could in some...
You can do that. It has to be account specific and account specific where it came from and where it is going, account specific. That's why you'll see it even on the articles, account number 32724,
Right, right.
like that, and it's like a 12-digit number.
Yeah,
Being transferred to, account number, blah, 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 you know, goes
Right.
on and on. And it's an amount specific, so $3.18 or $318,000.18. You have to be very, very specific on that, on the accounting. And for what it's used, for example, such and such department overtime. I'm just, transferred from such and such, whatever. That's how that usually goes. Or if they didn't use up the overtime, it would go to this, something, a need,
Right.
whatever it might be.
and listen, again, this isn't, I'm not doing this to get anybody in trouble. If individuals cannot handle their positions that they're elected to or appointed in, then they need to find something else to do. Because if they continue to do what they're doing, and it's only getting worse, then that tells me they're not doing their job. And I'm sorry. Listen, if you came to my house and helped me, said, hey Bob, I need you to help me with something. Can you help me lift this? My wrist is screwed up. You help me pick it up and move it. I'd throw you $10 for it, $20 here for your trouble, for gas, whatever. You know what I mean? How can you just go across and just throw this money somebody's way without specific information? I mean, I don't know what these people do. You're expecting me to go on your word that this person's been working hard, and they probably have. But after some of the things that you go through, now you're expecting me to sit there and believe what's coming out of your mouth. And it's like, no, I don't, sorry. It's just, it really is. It's mind-bending. It is, I think it's a flagrant misuse of power. I think it's, mismanagement, misappropriation of funds, mishandling of funds.
You may have that in some departments.
But you know what? There are too many things going on to say in some departments. It's happening somewhere and it's leaking into every other facet.
It's leaching into
Oh,
the other department. How's that?
leaching. Thank
How's
you.
that?
Leaching. But, I really do. I care about this town. I care about the residents. I don't care what anybody thinks or, you're entitled to your opinion. If you think I'm a troublemaker, then go for it. I could care less. But I know right now, I'm gonna do whatever I need to do to make sure my money isn't flaunted into things that I don't think they should be even going into or deserving after everything that's going on. I mean, how do you feel about that? I mean, I know you're on we're on the BOS, and you're a resident now, and
Always
listen,
was.
and listen, I'm not saying you're doing this to go after anybody. You're doing this to help inform residents of some of the things that are happening.
But again, I don't have all the answers.
And that's the thing, we're trying to come together as individuals to find out what we can do, because there's got to be something we can do to stop this bleeding. The town is bleeding right now, and the regular resident may not see it. I didn't see it for a very long, I knew what was going on, obviously, but I didn't realize the serious financial problems that this town has. But yet and I understand this money's coming from grants and this and that for new buildings and this and that. And that's wonderful. It really is. But none of the after things are thought of. Like you said, I believe on the last show, electricity's not thought of, phone, this, that, the other thing. And that's what's killing it, and that's mismanagement.
Or when the
Poor planning.
the little seedling now becomes a giant oak, And who's gonna repair the sidewalk of the street once it grows?
And that's the thing,
And
oh
who's
yeah.
gonna maintain it?
Well, that was just like, what is it, the place down, it was an old, I don't know if it was an Oak or a Maple, there were two of them on East Main Street.
Oh, yeah.
One was huge, right next to the old chairs before, and they cut that down because it was tearing up the whole.
Not just that, it was rotted out.
Right, and there was another one farther down, I believe, I wanna say, where the hell was it? At the Book Lovers Gourmet, I believe there was one there too, that they took down, and that's fine, I understand the process behind it and the thought process about, you know, it's coming up, and, you know, it's dying, or, you know, yes, that needs to be taken care of, I understand that. But there's gotta be a happy medium to all this. I mean, for everybody involved, and that includes the BLS, you know? Let me ask you this before we close this out, and I know I asked you this before. So, you're telling me that the finance committee is only there in an advisory position? They can't use their authority to sway any vote, and I don't mean to say it like that, but I think, you know what I'm trying to get at. We need fail-safes. Yes, we cannot prevent every mistake, but I believe we can prevent quite a bit of them. There's gotta be some type of fail-safe in there, so when somebody makes a mistake, we can go back and retract it and say, look, we made a mistake, this can't happen, we need to take this back or whatever, re-look at this and fix it.
They are advisory and they make recommendations. And they spend a lot of time on that.
No, I can imagine.
Just crunching numbers.
And again, you know, I understand it's not an easy job.
Stopgaps and so forth. There should be things there. Again, we're not supposed, well, if you're on the board of selectmen, you're not supposed to get involved in the everyday operations of the town. Unless you see something that's so blatant, then you go to, say, either one other member, because otherwise you'd be in violation of open meeting law, and or the town administrator. Or you might, on your own time without interfering, you might call a particular department head to say, you know, were you aware of this? What the heck is that costing us? I don't remember that, seeing that item. Could you look into that when you have time?
Well, I did, and I guess you just threw me for another loop here, because if the BOS is in charge of the town and doing what's best for the town, how can they not?
No, we don't run it.
Well, how can they not get involved with the daily operation?
We can't.
Why?
We cannot. That is in that.
But aren't you guys technically running it anyways? By the decisions you make?
On some things. But as far as the total operation of the town, we are not allowed to get, well, I was not allowed, or any of us that are sitting there, is to say, well, I'll tell you what, why don't you cut that job, take that vehicle away, sell that, do this, do that. We can't do that. It's the only person that we were in charge of, quite frankly, was the administrator. And it depends on, because that's the only appointment that we make, unless there's a vacancy on a board where we could make a temporary appointment. Or the board of selectmen could do that. So this person has 2 more years on a particular board. We'd open it up to post anyone interested in being on a certain board, whatever it might be, zoning, conservation, whatever. Well, we do appoint them too, or the board does. And you could do that so you get resumes and, oh, I did this, I did that, okay, fine. There's one spot, you got 3 applications. Now you gotta try to figure out which one's the best one and go from there. But otherwise, the board has, it's almost to the point where I said at one point to the former administrator, I says, really, if you don't listen to any of us, I said, what's the point of even having a board?
So the former TA wasn't even like listening to you guys?
That's the way I felt. And I know all of the board at one point or another talked about communication. Some one or two may know, the rest of us didn't know at the particular time. That went on for several years. And that was always, and that's public record, I believe, the evaluation of the administrator. And you go, there's always communication. I'm not saying, oh, there was a campfire that maybe set a box of French fries on fire. That doesn't bother me. I don't wanna know that. Or there was a bank robbery, such and such out of the, okay, fine, at least we know. But then there's some things that we just had no clue. There's nothing worse than getting blindsided on the street when somebody asks you.
Well, you know, there's gotta be a better way than the way it's going now. I mean, I know we don't have all the answers. I know I don't. I know Mr. Miller doesn't. I know probably many of you out there don't either. And, you know, that is okay. But we gotta start looking at these problems and trying to get them fixed one way or another. Because I'll tell you, with the reputation some of these BOS members are developing, you know, what's gonna happen? I mean, we're basically up in the air right now because none of them, I mean, other than one of them, do not seem to communicate, even with the residents. And to me, that's a big, big red flag. If you can't even communicate with the residents, then something is not right.
The residents, of the voters, they're the ones that got you there.
Right, and if you
Now
can't...
then, I always looked at it this way. Say whether you win or you lose, the idea of it is if you win, even those that did not vote for you, you still work for them. So they might come in and you know they didn't vote for you. You gotta change your hat, you gotta put on your sensible hat.
Right.
You know, and I know this for a fact, people have come in, they said, they'd probably like to throw an axe in my head. And they come up with yes, me, imagine that. But and they'd come up with an idea before the board, and I'd say, you know, that's a great idea. I'd like to have somebody on the board make a motion to, we accept Mr. Jones's motion. Motion, second. Any discussion? Poll the board. It was unanimous, and the person's saying, what happened here? He agreed with me. If you have a better wheel, who am I to say no?
Right.
And that's what I always felt, but I also wanted to hear feedback. Maybe this is one outlet to try to get the feedback from people so you can find out some answers. Like, for example, that one, it's a minuscule thing to some people, but it means a lot to the others. As far as your historical on that one.
The trough.
Yeah. Like a few phone
Well, I
calls.
mean, and that's
It's
the other thing.
minuscule.
Yes,
but-
it is in some aspects, but again, like you said, for some,
A lot of history.
it's a lot of history and it means a lot to them. They take pride in it and they want to know what happened to it and where did it go? Why didn't anybody, you know, and I think that's very detrimental when you can't even speak to the voters. I mean, even on, and yes, I'm using it, the forum page. Even on the forum page, listen, a lot of people have great ideas, but they also post problems on there. There's only one BOS member that I see that tries. Not one of the others will even make a comment. So in my mind, I'm thinking, wait a second, you got one individual who's willing to take the time to try to help and give you the information to help you understand better. But these other ones are just not even doing it. So, you're not working for me, period. That's the way I see it. You're not working for me, so
Well,
why are you in that position?
You have a few.
I don't want you in that position.
A few of them there are technical wizards, and I enjoyed that because it was like instantaneous, bada bing, you know.
Alright.
But then again, would you come up with pros and cons? 6 pages is something that you gotta read to try to make sense of.
No, I know, and
You know?
it is.
But I'll give him the salute, and because whether you agree with him or any of the others or not, you know. And
Yeah, but
again,
they don't even try to, listen, I could see if they even came on and said, look, we made a mistake, to try to, how can, ease the voter. Ease the voter, just ease them a little bit. You don't even want to do that. So, then you want me to vote for
I
you?
used to go on the forum, very rarely, but I did, on some things that there'd be a question and an answer or an opinion that was so bogus, I said, this is from outer space. So this is the way I see it, you know? And that's only the way I see it, only because this is what I've just read, you know? And you'd almost quote it or whatever and go from there.
Well, there's gotta be a better way on the way we're going, because honestly, I'm a pretty, how can I say it? Not secure, but I'm a pretty solid person when it comes to my future, you know? I know I'm not gonna, hey, if I make $1 million, I hit the lottery, great. Will I ever get a job to make that much money? Who knows? But you know what? I live within my means. Whatever I get,
That's what it boils down to.
I cut corners no matter what. You may not think so, it may not look it, I have very expensive equipment all around, all across the board, some very expensive programs, thousands of dollars.
But it's not reflected in his wardrobe.
Exactly.
That's where he's made the cut.
That's right, I made the cuts in my wardrobe. But we gotta come to a point where we say, hey, look, you know, we gotta stop all this until we can see some light. Until some of these things get worked out. Until we get the people in there who are gonna take the time to answer the questions, to be involved with the community. Not just, okay, here's $30,000, sign off, there you go. You know, we can't do that today. I'm sorry. This is, yes, the 21st century, technology is wonderful, but the economy is so bad. And again, I understand every town is in the same boat, and maybe there aren't, but I don't think they're in the boat we're in. I mean, our boat seems to keep getting weighed down with a lot of this stuff that shouldn't have even been considered.
What I always used to say, only because I belong to the Titanic Historical Society, I'd say, you know, we can sink like the Titanic. The difference being, do you want to go down in just 12 feet of water or 12,000 feet of water? Because you can always get, you know, with 12 feet of water, you can bail it, you can do whatever, and keep on your way. Or you're just going to go down.
Well, listen, the prettiness of this town, the exterior looks great. They're doing a lot of wonderful things with a lot of the areas, and that's great. I don't want to see that stop. But you got to come to a point where you say, look, we're really spending a lot of money here. We need to cut the corners on a lot of things. Just like that $20,000 phone bill. I mean, you need to,
Good
I
for
don't,
municipal.
I don't,
That's not, it can't be just for your municipal.
well, that's, I don't know, but my point is, this phone bill, yeah, it's up over $100 a month, only because I've upgraded my phone and I have to pay for the new upgrade, you know, to some extent. But it's almost like we're choking ourselves.
It's, like I said, I didn't look at this and that, and again, I'm not part of it anymore, but I should probably pay more attention, but I've been trying to
Well, that's,
make enough money to pay my taxes, my water, and my sewer bills.
but that's the other thing
That's
too.
another problem, and it's a problem, because that's usually not me.
Right. Yeah, but listen, again, not
I'm wrong.
yeah, exactly. Everybody makes mistakes. I'm wrong too, in a lot of areas. I can admit to that. I'm a human being, I'm an adult, I'm a man. I can, you know, I might fly off the handle, but then, you know, give me a little bit and I'll think about it. And I know when I flew off that, listen, that was the wrong way to do it. But it gets to the point where you get so frustrated, it seems like you don't get to a point where you can say, okay, you know what I mean? They did the best they can, or could. But it doesn't even seem like they're doing anything with the existing problems, but giving pay raises to employees. I mean, the water's a perfect example. Oh, and let me explain something here. I know that fire did something to it.
Oh, yeah.
Coming here, I was at Place Motors, driving by there. There was a DPW guy there. He was flushing that
Yeah.
hydrant, and it was brown like, I don't know, what do you got brown around here? I mean, deep
My pants.
like that. It was like that. I almost stopped and took a picture. So, you know, we can give people raises, but we can't even look into alternatives for better water.
It was
That-
supposed to, but
That speaks volumes to me. The fact that some of them don't even comment speaks volumes to me. I mean, I'm sorry, whether you like me or not, I'm gonna say it like it is. I don't care, you know? And if I'm wrong, I will go publicly, make a video, whatever, and apologize publicly, because that's just how I am. I'm not perfect. But there are too many of them. There are just way too many mistakes. And it's at the expense of us. I mean, I don't know how else to look at it or explain it. You know? But, anyways, listen, we've really run over on this. I'm going to most likely have to break this into 2 segments. I know if it's 2 hours, it's going to be a very big file. So I'm going to probably have to break it into 2 segments, which isn't bad. It's not a big deal. But we needed to discuss some of this stuff and try to get some insight on it from Mr. Miller. And, you know, hopefully things start changing. And if not, I'm still going to continue what I'm doing for the sake of this town and its residents, because I think we all deserve a little bit better than what's going on here.
you get more input.
Right, and that's what I want to do. So you heard the man, ladies and gentlemen. More questions, more topics. You know, Mr. Miller will gladly answer them for you.
If I can.
If he can. You know, again, I'm not any expert. I'm not here to, you know, deface any one individual. You know, I want to get this fixed just as much as anybody else. And all across the board, no pun intended. So I want to take the time right now to say thank you. Again, your input, suggestions, anything at this point would be outstanding. You know, thank you again.
And I'll get him some medication.
Yes, yeah. Matter of fact, I gotta go home and take some right now. But I want to thank you again, sir. It's always a pleasure, and you know, we're gonna be doing some more with him, and I appreciate it. And you know, I'm pretty sure, and I can't speak for all the members, but I think they appreciate it as well, because you give them a little more insight to some of this stuff.
And there's a lot of things I don't know, or, you know, and I've been upfront about that. I'm not saying that even some of the answers that I've given are textbook, or just press a button or two and there it is, to get your opinion on. I'm dumb as a box of rocks when it comes to that, but I just, as I see them, that's what I call it.
We all have our pros and cons when it comes to learning, when it comes to, you know, perceiving things or interpretation, or, you know, work ethic or views, morals, values, standards. We're all different. That's what makes us all individuals. We have our own individual makeup, not just DNA, how we think, what we feel, what we see, how we interpret stuff. You know, that's what makes us who we are, and we're all good people. You know, we're human. You know, we're allowed to make mistakes, but it seems like there's so many of them. It just it's baffling. But again, everybody, thank you, Mr. Miller. For the WOW Show, I'm Greg, and you know, we'll be back hopefully soon, within 3 to 4 weeks, with another show. Again, I want to thank the members of the show page on Facebook for their questions. We want more, and you know, be good, people. Stay safe, and Love your community. I'm out of here.